Do you want to know how to paint the dirtiest, grimiest, most Magnus melting Bjorn ever? I'm gonna show you how. Let's go. So for our Bjorn, we wanted to kind of get away from the heavy metal style of painting and really just show the absolute unit of shit he has been through. Bjorn has been fighting for the Imperium for over 10,000 years. So he is the last of the company of Russ. He is rarely awoken for anything other than like apocalyptic level events. So we just wanted to capture all of that, you know, the rust, the dirt, all of the just grime that is associated with fighting and being repaired over 10,000 years. So I primed and base coated him with the airbrush out in the garage. We started with a regular gray base coat, and then I used my mix of Thunderhawk blue and Macragge blue to form that blue base coat that we all associate with the Space Wolves.
Whoa!
And then I went ahead and started with his signature black, red, and white shin pad, and also figured what better way to start showing any kind of battle damage than to throw him on the table a couple of times because I have butterfingers and can't seem to hold on to anything.
Our lives are in your hands and you have butterfingers?
And then next I started by blocking in all of our black colors and starting on all of the gold trim details. Now I'm going to use a nice bright blue for all of the edge highlighting and the lightning claw. Make sure that you thin your paints down enough so that they just glide off of the paintbrush. It makes it so much easier to catch all those edges. So I wanted to get away from using my typical gunmetal or shining silver colors that I use for all of my metallics that are silvery in color. And I went with this cobalt metal color. I was really hoping that it would be a little bit more blue like it is in the container, but it just didn't come out that way. And I think it's a little bit to do with the black undercoating that we did. But it still turned out pretty cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and coat all of our guns and all of our other metallic bits like the exhaust and such in this color. And I painted the chamber and the tank black on this weapon just to break up the color a little bit and so that it would give us a nice contrast for the glowing effect we're gonna do here later. And then we just used a little bit of death metal for some interest in some of these other weapons. And here we are going back to some gold trim for the lightning claw. So next I started on all the furs. Now I wanted these to look really dirty and old and dingy and muted. So I went with a dark gray for our base coat and then a medium gray for all of the edges and the start of our highlight colors. And now we're gonna start weathering him. I'm gonna go in with a sponge, which can be a hobby sponge or the sponging that comes in some of the old packs of Warhammer. We're gonna take this sponge and dampen it just a little bit and dip it in black paint and then kind of dab it off in a similar way that you would do with dry brushing because you don't want too much paint on your sponge when you start this. We're going to use the sponge in a kind of stippling motion to add this chipping with our black paint. You're just going to take it and dab it and dab it and dab it.
Give it a little tappy. Tap, tap, tap-a-roo.
Then we're going to go in and do the exact same thing with a dark rust color and a light rust color, just to add that extra depth and really make him look worn. Now I want to make sure that I'm adding a lot of our rust colors all over, but specifically on our metallic parts because that's where you're going to see a lot of the rust accumulate. We're going to put them in the joints and all over the metallic bits. And then I'm going to take this just another step further and add a bit of a rust wash. And this is going to go all over the metallic bits as well, just to really push that griminess to the next level. I'm also going to put this in the joints where the arms meet the body and in other areas where rust would really accumulate. Next, I'm gonna go back in and do some more edge highlights in an even brighter blue. We're gonna make sure that we catch all of the edges that face forward and on the edges where we want to draw the eye. We're gonna make sure that we also don't just swipe this in straight lines. We're gonna add some like chipping and stippling kind of textures in, as well as the straight lines, just to kind of break it up a little bit and add a little bit more interest to the overall edges. I'm gonna use that same blue to go in and start adding scratches to all of the armor. You're just gonna thin your paints really well so they come off the brush really easily, and then you're just gonna barely drag the tip of your paintbrush over the surface that you're trying to scratch. Just really quick, fast motions. And now to really punch up that old, dirty, been through 10,000 years of shit look, we're gonna add an oil wash over the entire model. This is really gonna deposit that dirt look and that really old vibe to the whole thing and bring the whole thing under the same filter. Now it's time to wrap this all up with the finer details. We're gonna highlight fur, paint the chains, paint the gemstones, and freehand the nameplate. So why don't we go ahead and roll the montage. And now it's time for the base. Brian, the basing badass, is going to go ahead and cut out and mark some corkboard and then add that to the base and start breaking off the edges so that they still remain nice and jagged so they can pass for rocks later when we paint them. And then he's going to take a second and third layer of cork and sketch out the general idea of how he wants it to look and score it with a hobby knife so he can go back in and break it off so that it stays in the same general shape and retains that jagged edge. I painted the rock off camera, and then Brian test fit Bjorn on the base and wound up having to shave some of the texture down so that he would fit securely on the base when he was glued. And now he's just going to place some grass tufts and a Thousand Suns demon skull to the base, to which he's going to pass off to me for a quick paint job. Lastly, he just adds some snow effects to the base and then sprinkles some on top of Bjorn where it would naturally accumulate, and then on the edges of the fur where the fur would be dragging in the snow. And now it is time to cue the epic music. there you have it. Bjorn the Fell-Handed looking like he's ready to fuck up Magnus for a second time. Now don't forget, if you like our content, please smash the ever-loving shit out of that like button. Hit the subscribe bell so you don't miss any of our future content. We have also launched our Squarespace website, so don't forget to go check that out too. There's lots of cool stuff over there. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can always jump on over to our Patreon and check that out as well. I want to thank you guys for making it this far, and we'll see you next time.